my... Hey guys. There it is. Can you hear it?
Yeah.
Your bird is vibing with it.
I know. Wherever it is, it's loving it.
Seriously, did you hear it?
Yeah.
That's so funny. All right.
It's very loud. Must be right on top of me.
It's right on the beat, though. I love it. Okay. Hey guys, it's Nina Hart, president of the National Nurses in Business Association, opening my ginger ale. Sorry. And Casey Goff, our member engagement coordinator. Welcome to our Tuesday afternoon live stream. And that bird that's on her patio is joining us live today to talk about bloom where you're planted. I loved this topic because I think so much of business is learning to adapt to what we have and also leveraging what we have already got. So I'm really excited to talk about that today.
Yeah, I think it's really encouraging for people to know that like you can be resourceful with like whatever you already have. You don't need to start fresh and buy everything to start your business. Like you can start with what you've got and then build as you grow. So I think that's just something that's not talked about enough.
I agree. And I think we also assume we have to have all these things, these external things, in order to start because we're not ready.
Right.
And that just makes things like drag out that we could have already been working on because we thought we had to have this certain thing to do anything. Right. And that's just not true.
Yeah. When you were first starting, is there anything that you thought you had to have? And then you realize now, like, I really didn't have to have that. I could have started without it.
Well, yes, but that's kind of the tricky thing about like how we think is like, I didn't think something so explicit that it was that easy to answer, right? I didn't think, well, in order to start my business, I must be a certified ACHC and CHAP consultant. So I'm going to have to do that now. But there were times when I was thinking about business before I started where I thought, I should really have my MBA. I looked into getting my master's in business because I thought, well, I know nothing about business, right? There's nothing wrong with that. I think having an MBA would be amazing. However, I don't think you need to have that to start a business. And I feel that way about everything else. Like, I don't think there's anything you could ask me that I would say, yes, you need to have that before you start. Now, there are some legal things that you probably want to do, right? And those steps are a little different than what we're talking about today. Things, if it's a law, you should probably do it, right? But like even insurance, when nurses ask me like, well, I don't have professional liability, I'm like, well, do you have clients that you're billing? Because if you're just thinking about starting a business, you don't need to have professional liability as far as like business coverage. So that type of thing, I feel like there's different waves of necessity for, but like I thought I needed to get certifications, which I like anyway. Like I just like doing those things. But if you're thinking you have to have that to start a business, that's not true. And I even like push back on that sometimes a little bit and say like, you don't even have to be a nurse to be a healthcare to be a consultant for healthcare businesses. Like business people are doing this, non-nurses are doing this. So like, if you think you need to have something special or specific, like no one else is doing that. That's in your brain. That's a rule we've constructed to protect ourselves from something.
Yeah. And I also think if you look online, like how to start a business, sometimes they will like say that kind of stuff because I've done that. And it's like, well, get a license to do this or do this to do this. And it's like, sometimes, like you said, you might need it, but sometimes, I've looked up like, how can I start a backyard garden? And it's like, have 10 acres.
Become a licensed horticulturist.
Right. And it's like I could literally just like spread seed out anywhere and it would grow. So
yeah,
there are ways to fine tune it. Once you get there, it would be helpful to have, but I don't need to have like, a chemistry degree to figure out the pH balance of soil to plant a seed.
And generally for those kind of things, I say wait till you're making money, like especially for people who don't have a big budget for business stuff. or who are really limited financially or believe that they are at this point, I would recommend like then my default answer to that is just wait till you have clients. Then wait till you have paying clients or at least one before you start reinvesting in your business. If that is holding you back from moving forward and you're like, "Oh, I just don't have the money to pay for all of these things." A business license for your state, Tennessee's I think like $50. Hawaii was like $50. I know some states are up to 300. The most you're going to spend on a business license to establish your business in your state is a couple $100. It's really not wildly outrageous. And that is a legal requirement of doing business. And I wouldn't recommend if you're going to be actively doing business, um, avoiding that because there's fines and things and, government and such. So that's something that I would definitely do. But we're talking more about like above and beyond yourself, like acquiring knowledge you don't have. And I wouldn't recommend doing that to start a business. I would identify an area you can serve and show up with knowledge that you already have.
Yeah, that's good advice. What are some, I feel like you are like the queen of these, but what are
Oh
some
no.
free or like low cost tools that new business owners can utilize if they're like, I have my budget is $300 and for this month for this business, and I'm going to spend 250 on my business license and 50 on my cards. So what are some things that they can use, like different strategies or tools?
Well, this is a great question. I love this. There are tons of tools and free things. I've done a couple TikToks in the past on consulting specifically, and like literally you can be a consultant right now today, like a Gmail, right? And
Yeah.
obviously, I've had pushback on this before that, oh, that's not professional. Well, that is true, but when you're first starting, it's unlikely that you're establishing a Fortune 500 firm that day, right? So everybody's got to start somewhere. So if you
Right.
have any potential connections in your existing healthcare circle and you make that personal relationship and you already know them, they don't care if you have a Gmail. Now,
Right.
if you're cold outreaching in mass to a stranger, to a huge audience, then maybe a Gmail might be a little sus for that. But
Yeah. Right.
most of the time, having a hearthealthcare at gmail.com is probably not going to, that's not my email, but is not going to be a huge red flag if you already have a relationship and you're reaching out to people that you know and that
Right.
you've built a relationship with. So you can start for free with a free Gmail. There's free platforms of almost every like CRM that I know, or like organizational software if you wanted to like build out your services. Google Docs. Literally, I've been seeing the new hot trend in coaching is sending a Google Doc with the details of all of your services. So I have literally been sent a Google Doc for coaching services and thought nothing of it. It has a nice little logo at the top and it says coaching services for such and such a thing. And this dog is licking my leg. Please stop. Can I have 30 minutes to myself? And so I think that is totally acceptable now. And again, going back to the very core of everything I believe business is about, this is all about relationships. So you're not spamming hundreds of people with a Google Doc, right? You're
Right. Right.
you asked for it. I asked you for information on what you're doing, and I sent it to you personally from my Gmail with this Google Sheet. I
Right.
personally, you can push back in the comments. Let me just, I'm here for it. That's what we're doing right now. Push back on me and tell me, why that's not acceptable or what your perceptions are. I'm totally open to your opinions on that. That's my opinion. My opinion is that in this day and age of business, it's all about relationships. And if you're just starting out, you should do that in the most financially feasible way for you possible. And that could totally be using Google.
Right.
The thing
Yeah.
is,
I don't think there's anything wrong with that, honestly. And I grew up, maybe it's because I grew up in a generation where like everything is online and everything is technical and everything is on computers. So like it's nothing for me to get just like a Google Doc and go
yeah,
through it. I mean, that's how I do like my school assignments. That's how I mean, everything is done on that. So I don't see why not. I wouldn't not buy from someone or not, if it looked organized and professional on the Google Doc,
And again, this kind of goes back to the know, like, and trust. It's all about relationships. You wouldn't just send this to a stranger who is like, you know, just happened upon you, right? You are doing this after a conversation, after verifying that they're interested, after they asked you, "Can you send me something?" You're going to email
Yeah.
them your services. But, when you're talking about free ways to find clients or free ways to start your business, I want to use this opportunity, and whether or not it fits the flow, I want to talk about intrapreneurship. It's kind of underrated, okay? And it's the way a lot of people start. And just to kind of define that is like, what if you're starting your own thing and you want to like develop your skills and get clients, but you're still working full time, a lot of people do that through their own current employer because they're working for an employer and they're like, well, I'm wanting to develop this program, or I'm wanting to, you know, refine my skills. And a great way to do that is to do that through your current employer. I think you've done that before, Casey. You probably didn't know you were doing it at the time, but like, it's a great way to bloom where you're planted is to use your skills at your current employer. So like, maybe you develop an internal program to measure a certain outcome that you're super interested in. Maybe someday you're going to be a consultant that way. Maybe you want to provide that as a service, as a coach, and you want to develop an internal program that serves that, or an internal workshop, or an internal tool, right? That's intrapreneurship. However, there are just a couple pros and cons to that. One of the cons being a lot of nurses don't get paid for it. They're doing
Right.
entrepreneurship for free, and they're going way above their role or what's expected, but they're not getting paid for that. So maybe you create, and I hear this time and time and time and time again, and I hear this from people who are angry, from nurses who are angry that they've given all of this to their job and gotten nothing for it. And I've
Nothing, right.
been in this position before, but a lot of the time we are innovating and creating these things, but either we don't ask for extra money for it, and we expect to be recognized for it, and a lot of the time we are not.
We're not.
Yeah. So that's one con of
We're given a
entrepreneurship.
pizza party.
We are given a thank you card. Thank you so much for this program that saved us $100 million. We really appreciate you.
Right.
Here's a thank you card, which if you get that, you're luckier than most. But intrapreneurship is a great free way to start because you can, sometimes employers will recognize like this person is really good at this thing and we want them to do this for us, and we'll give you this bonus for this, or we'll give you this stipend for this, or we'll let you do that as a consultant in a consultant role, or as a coach in a coaching role, and bring you on concurrently in our company. I hear about this. I've never done it this way. I've always just had to give my expertise for free other than my salary. But I hear a lot about it, and I just wanted to acknowledge it because it doesn't get talked about enough. You're frozen. I don't know if you know that. I'm going to keep talking because we're live. We got a little comment here. Pizza party. It's true. A lot of the time, to recognize our superior skills and abilities, we do get a pizza party. And that is unfortunate. And a lot of the time, we don't ask for more than that. And I think that's part of the reason why. She's back. Hold on. There she is. She's back. It's okay.
Seems to me that one of my guests may have unplugged my Wi-Fi router because it just went off.
Okay. Or they're streaming concurrent episodes of Love Island. Who knows, right?
Could be. Who knows?
I don't know. Well, we're going to enjoy you while we've got you here. But yeah, I just wanted to give a little do it. I can't hear you.
I'm not talking.
Okay. Sorry, it doesn't look like your internet's holding up for us, but we'll go with it. So, bloom where you're planted in the context of entrepreneurship, meaning, or what does that even mean, is really like looking back at what you have within yourself. And I use that in the context of coaching as like, what have you already done? When I talk to nurses who are like, oh, I want to do something different, what expertise do you already have? Or what expertise have you used for an employer, kind of similar to entrepreneurship, but in the past, what have you done that like really helped you to get ahead or to do something profound for an employer? So like, what have you done for an employer? Like for me, when I was in Hawaii, there was this super rural long-term care facility, and they had not been fully staffed in like 10 years. And we found all these creative ways to get local nurses working there. And we were fully staffed with RNs for the first time in 10 years. And not only did they not appreciate it and not say thank you, they were like, why? Appreciation for that, but I didn't, right? In leadership that I knew how to cultivate, I knew how to hire people, I knew how to think outside of the box, I knew how to solve these really complex organizational problems, I knew how to audit. So all these existing skills that I had already developing in real time, and those are things that I wouldn't necessarily always recognize in myself until after the fact. So I was talking to someone recently, I don't know if it was on the last live stream or not, but I was talking about the book, The Gap and the Gain, that I recently just finished, and they talk about always measure back. And so it's like looking back, I realized I had done all these things, these awesome things, right? Like that I'm not like sharing with other people or boasting about or really come up in day-to-day conversation or anything. But these things are things that I have done that really helps the organizations that I worked for. And as a consultant now, these are services that I offer. I offer leadership support, and I offer compliance support, audits, survey readiness. And those are the things as a consultant that I'm saying like, hey, I'm really good at these things because I've done them in the past and seen really positive outcomes from those. So when I think of like bloom where you're planted, I really think of like taking full advantage of your skills, even if you're in an employment situation right now, or if you're in your own business and you're like, man, I'm not really sure what I want to offer, or you started a business that you're kind of floundering in, go back to your expertise and rely on what you've done in the past and look at, wow, okay, I've done these things and they really helped people, right? How could I do those again for someone else? And so I think that is probably the most practical way that I would say to kind of bloom where you're planted, is like really leaning into the skills that you already have that maybe you have overlooked or that you haven't really embraced or applied to your business. And I know that a lot of nurses think that our skills are common, but it's shocking to me when I hear nurses talk with like expertise on a subject that I, as a nurse with a master's and all this education, had no idea about, right? Like, I don't know if am I the only one that's ever like been talking to someone and they're telling me something and they're acting like it's common knowledge and you're like, I had no idea. like this is not something that everyone has just gone and done. I think we really minimize and take advantage sometimes of the skills we've developed and the experiences we have as nurses. We feel like it's very normal, very average, and it's not. The stuff we have done as a nurse for employers and for people and for our family and friends, our church, our associations, our charities, whatever. These are things that like took a great amount of skill that we take advantage. We take for granted that we have these skills. And so you probably already have the skills to do something amazing and you're just maybe not super aware of that. But, if you're looking for the first steps that you can take to use what you've already have, I would consider a few different options. There's a few different options that you could consider. And that is, like I said, entrepreneurship. If you're working for someone else, offer to do it as a pilot. 100% offer to do it as a pilot. If you can negotiate to be paid something extra based on the outcome, I would do that. I would encourage you strongly to do that. But if you can do a test group that you can get some data from, that is super helpful. Myself, as well as many of my other nurse entrepreneur friends, have seen the benefit of doing a test group. And usually, if you want to see what the response is going to be to a test group, you charge less for it. I know a lot of people who say that you should do work for free to get clients, and I know a lot of programs that suggest doing work for free. I'm not totally against that if you feel like that's what you should do, but I prefer to be paid for the work that I do. And so, usually I will do something for a steeply discounted rate if I've never done it before, especially, or if I'm trying to get certain metrics out of it. Like you could say, hey, I'm willing to offer you this service just to, be paid for my time and nothing else. And in exchange, I would like to have a testimonial or have, a review written or, something like that. So I think that it's really important that we, I wouldn't suggest you say, come out swinging and say $10,000 for this service that I've never done before and I have no idea if it's going to work or not, right? Like that's probably not the best. That's high risk, right? That's a high risk behavior for you as a business owner to charge the full amount for something you've never done in your life, right? That's probably not going to build much trust with your audience because you've never done it. Very confirming. I thought to have a test group. Yeah, I think that test groups are always great. You're going to see a couple important things. You're going to see how much interest is this really getting, right? Are people interested in what I'm doing? You're going to see if they're willing to pay for it if you charge something for it, right? Like you said, you could say this test group is 75% off the normal price that I'm going to charge for this. So I'm going to have structured feedback. I'm going to have surveys, pre-survey, mid-survey, and post-survey, as well as a testimonial, recorded interview, whatever you're going to require from that test group as their commitment. I will say it's going to require more work on your part. I can just put that out there very honestly. If you do a test group, just prepare yourself. It is going to be a lot more work because you're going to have to do all these things on the front end that you haven't done before. And you're going to have to really, really plan for maximum engagement with these people. And that takes a lot of effort. So it's going to require a lot of your attention and intention to do a test group. But I think it's a great way to get yourself more confident in what you're doing. You're going to get explicit outcomes from them that are going to say like, wow, before this program, I was here. If you're coaching, or, our organizational metrics were here if you're consulting. And then during the program, we saw a 10% improvement. Then by the end, we were at 50% improvement, or, here are the metrics that we gathered throughout this process. And I think that is super, super helpful all around for your confidence, for your messaging. You can use this as messaging to future clients as well. Over analytical. Yeah, understood. And just pick like 3 metrics that you want to measure throughout that. And then just do it. If you have people that ask you about it, I think that's the best way. If you start having conversations and just talking to people and say, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. If you know anybody who's interested, send them my way. It's going to be super affordable. I'm never going to do it again. I just need some data, and I need some participants who are willing to give me some feedback. So I think that's a really, really great way to get unstuck or to get started if you haven't started with something, or to test out a program that you want to do. Because you're never going to feel ready. That's just not reality. If you wait till you feel ready, you probably will never do it. And so I think it's really important to look at the risk involved and say, is this a risk I can take? Is this a risk I'm willing to take? And usually, especially with a test group, if you're doing a test group, then there's not much on the line other than like your personal feelings of whether you're going to succeed or not, right? Because you are probably going to get paid for some of your time. If you do a test group and you do it discounted or free, you're not going to get paid for all of your time because you're developing a new program. It takes a lot of time and effort, but you'll get something. You'll get, if anything, the confidence of knowing that somebody's willing to pay you for your services. And that is huge. And I think people like really underestimate how that feels. Like if you have a test group and you get 5 people in it, and 5 people pay you $100 for a 6-week class or a 4-week class, you're probably not going to get paid what you want to get paid for your first group, but you're going to have that confidence of knowing people think it's worth paying for. They paid for it, right? And they think my services are worth paying for. And so I think that's really a huge confidence booster. It kind of tells us, wait, maybe I can do this. So I think that's a great way to help get over the hump of feeling like you're not ready, is just kind of put it out there and see what the response is. If you've done the back work and you're just waiting and waiting and waiting, a test group is a way to kind of get over that. So I'm trying to think of anything else. What are some common things nurses wait on? We talked about that a little bit. We talked about certifications. What else are some things we wait on? What else are we waiting on? Feeling ready. We talked about that. I think we just wait until we're waiting for this magical, like, fairy tale moment that is not coming, right? And so, like, for me, I was waiting until I had all of the information that I wanted to have built out in a course, ready to go. I don't do that anymore. And most course creators that I know don't do that anymore. They gain the interest and then they build it with the people. They don't even have it ready, right? And most of the nurses that I work with that do programs, like virtual programs, don't have it ready when they launch it. They build it with the group. And I know that can be terrifying, but there's some accountability in that because you got to show up. These people paid for it. And there's also a lot of freedom in that because you're building it based on what the identified needs are, what the engagement is, what the interest is. You've tested the interest, you've got people interested. Now you're creating it with them. So when you're recording it, you're recording the sessions and then you're uploading them into the course platform. The beauty of that is you don't have hundreds of hours in something that you never use. You don't have hundreds of hours in something, that's like just going to sit out there, or that you're like, well, it's not done, so I can't do it yet. I think sometimes we wait to finish something that shouldn't be finished before we launch it, right? Especially depending on what the product is. Now, I do still think you need to have your basic foundations of marketing and research, and you want to have an outline of what your product is so that whoever you're selling it to knows what they're getting, right? It's should still be a very high quality product. I'm not saying, oh, I'm going to throw this together and record it because I said I would. I'm saying that it can be a more collaborative experience with the people who need the service when you do it live. And so now I find it very freeing to do things live. I did not always feel that way, okay? But once I started doing live events, it's very freeing to say, here's what I'm going to talk about. Here's the content. Here's the meat. Here's the outcome. Here's what you're going to get. And, especially for coaching services or workshops or webinars, those can be reused as passive income later, right? So you can upload that content into a platform and say it's done, instead of me spending a year trying to upload everything I knew about being a DON into a course platform, right? So I think that that's one strategy that I would use to avoid getting stuck in the creation mud, in the mire of like having to have all these overwhelming components created. I would challenge you to do a trial with like less structured creation. So maybe you make a Google Doc outline and you record yourself on Zoom sharing that Google Doc and saying, first thing we're going to cover is this. Second thing we're going to cover is this. And then you kind of get the flow of how it's going to feel. And then you can do that live with a group and record it and save that recording as your passive income stream, or as your replay, or as your content, or as whatever you want. So I think that's one of the ways that I have found super helpful to kind of get out of the planning mode. Yeah, the creation mode. It's tough because we're like, this has to be so high quality, and this has to have all these components in it, and this has to be exactly what I hoped it would be. And it's like, right, but then it's never going to get done and no one will ever see it. And that was true for me with my courses. I had created so much stuff and most of that still never got used. But the stuff that got used was the live stuff that I was like, hey, I'm doing this. If you'd like to show up, here it is. If no one buys it, you still do it. If no one buys it, you still do it. Still get on Zoom, still go over your sheet, still upload the recording, still sell that as a passive income stream, right? As a workshop, or free, give it away free and say, here's my free video training for organizations on this. Here's my free video training for individuals who want this, right? And use that as your lead magnet. You've got it done now, right? That was easy. All you had to do was get on Zoom and record you talking over a Zoom document, right? A Google document on whatever topic you chose. And so you pick one outcome and just kind of do a training on Zoom is a great way to get more comfortable with being live and interacting and teaching. And then also gets people who watch it to feel like they're more personal. The video component and like the more conversational component of like recording yourself, it feels a little bit more personal and authentic. So that's a completely free way. You can do that on a free Zoom with a free Google Doc and offer it free as a free resource. And that can open up to say like, here's one area I can assess as a consultant on this topic, or here's one area as a coach that I specialize in that you might not be aware of you're doing or you need, and you can focus on one point and that's it. So that is a completely free strategy that I recommend if you're just starting out, or if you're stuck in the creation mire of feeling like everything has to be done and there's this huge strategy that's just not doable. So I think that is really what I would recommend the most. So how do you know when to start investing more time, money, and energy in your business? That's an easy answer for me. And that's when you're making money. When you start making money off of what you're doing and you have a client who is paying you, you can answer the question, yes, someone's willing to pay for this. Yes, this business is going to work because you have revenue coming in. If you're grinding and you're miserable and you're not making any money with it, you may need to consider, am I serving the right person? Am I offering the right service? Is my messaging on point? Or maybe I need to pivot. Maybe I need to pivot to something more specific, more niche. Maybe I need to reevaluate my niche because your business should make money. You should be bringing money in. And if you're not, then something somewhere isn't right. Either you're not out in front of the right audience, or you're not making yourself visible, or your messaging is not connecting with your audience. And you can run all of these things through ChatGPT for free. I ask these kind of questions to ChatGPT all the time. How can I Refine my messaging for hospices who need compliance support. What are the 3 struggles that a hospice leader with no compliance support is going through today? These are the kind of questions I ask ChatGPT. So if you're not sure who your audience is and you're not sure what your messaging is and you're not sure what you should be putting out there to get visible, that's a great way to leverage AI and to use ChatGPT. How can I get more visibility on LinkedIn with home health cares? Or how can I get visibility on Instagram for clients with weight loss, or whatever your area is? Ask a few questions like that with ChatGPT, because you can really get some good ideas and start refining that and working through it. So those are some free or low cost ways that you can kind of refine your approach, and also to make sure you're moving in the right direction. And then always, getting a mentor is helpful. Asking if you've got peers who are in business as well, asking them to look over things. It's hard if you ask your friends because they don't want to hurt your feelings, so they may not tell you, like someone who you're paying. That's why I recommend coaching and mentorship, because you're paying them for your success. You're paying them for their support. So generally, they're going to do whatever it takes, to support you in a way that's for your best outcome, or hopefully, ideally. I can't speak for all coaches, but the ones that I've worked with will generally push back because, they do want to see you succeed, whereas a friend is going to be more supportive in their role. They don't want to hurt your feelings or damage your relationship, so they're not going to be as direct. And that's really where I think having good mentors is so critical, especially if you're feeling stuck or discouraged. So I want to close with, Casey's got this question on the agenda, and she said her power, she texted me and said her power went out. So that's why she didn't rejoin. But she said, what do you wish someone had told you in the early stages of your business journey? I would say, not to plan so much, and also it's worth investing in yourself. I didn't want to spend any money. I think I spent $100 on a website setup, and I was just torn to pieces over that, right? And I think that it is true that I do say that you shouldn't be spending a ton of money until you're making money, but that's really more on things that are trainings or certifications or extra letters after your name, right? You don't need those, and they're not going to make you money. Revenue generating activities. So if it's going to help you make more money to hire a coach, then hire a coach or a mentor. And that's probably going to be worth that investment. It has been for me anyway. I can only speak to my experience, but I also, think just being told just move forward instead of the planning stage and the preparing stage and all these things that I was trying to do to get everything ready, and putting all of this in that platform instead of just doing what I loved and talking to people and training people and teaching people and giving things away. It's a lot easier than grinding, right? It's not about the grind. If it was about the grind, I could have stayed in my job, right? And just stayed in employment, because I was already doing that. That was already this performance-based loop that I was in, right? And I was trying to get out of that. So why was I trying to recreate that in my own business for myself? It shouldn't have to be that way. And if you want a business that, is going to be fulfilling and energizing, it can't be that way. You can't recreate the situation you're currently in, which you don't want to be in, right? So I think it's really important to kind of just enjoy the season you're in and accept it and say, okay, why am I where I am right now? And if I don't want to be here anymore, what is one thing, one action, one step that I need to do to move me forward? What does that look like? Because those tactics, those actions are what's going to move you forward, not more planning and more, preparing. You really need to take action, aligned action, in order to get out of where you currently are. You're going to have to move. If you want to get out of where you currently are, you're going to have to move. And it's probably going to be scary and possibly painful because it's probably not going to be perfect. But you really have to fail to succeed. I've learned that every time I've done anything, I've learned that you have to fail to succeed. And it is painful, and it is a learning process, and it is a growing process. It is a season. And so I hope that you will take that action to move yourself forward and really bloom where you're planted and grow your own business. And so I wish you the best of luck, and I'd love to hear your feedback. Let me know what questions you have about this topic or any topics that you'd like to hear. And thanks for joining today.